So last night, around midnight, me and my partner got an Uber from a friend's house back to my place. For reference, we live about 1.5 miles away from my friend, but in a dark, sketchy part of town, so we didn't want to walk. We ordered the Uber and smoked a joint while waiting for him to show up. We get in and do the typical Uber greetings. It's a short drive, about 10 minutes, and it was about to be the longest ride of my life. He starts the conversation by asking if we had just escaped from a place called Sageview. At the time, I didn't know this, but after looking it up, it turns out to be a psych ward near where we were picked up. I told him no, just going home after a fun night. He laughs and says that he had spent time at Sageview himself. I asked him why he spent time there. He replies by saying, "Well, it's because I'm crazy." This unnerves me a little, but I figure we'll be home soon enough, and I joke back saying that I'm a little crazy myself and how everyone is in their own way. There's a very long pause before he says, "I got arrested at my therapy appointment," said something that my therapist didn't like. This sets off many alarm bells inside my brain, and I almost jump out of the car with my partner. I'm trying to silently get her attention, but like always when she's with me, she kind of shuts off her situational awareness and doesn't notice anything wrong. I decide to keep talking to him because the silence makes me uneasy. I asked him what he said that his therapist didn't like. He laughs way too long for a question like that and says that it doesn't matter. Then there's another very long pause. Then out of nowhere he says something in a threatening inflection. He was asking me way too much questions. At this point I take the hint and stop pushing the subject. I start directing him myself instead of trusting him or the map he is following. We had maybe 2 minutes left in the drive, and I notice him staring daggers at me in the mirror, not even watching the road. I tell him to just pull over and let us out because I feel no amount of walking is worse than being in a car with that man. Me and my partner get out and start speed walking away while he sits in the middle of the road watching us. I didn't hear his car start until we were down on the next street. I had already dialed 911, and if I saw his car again that night, I wouldn't have hesitated. I don't know what was up with that guy, but I hope I never see him again. And to top it all off, my partner was completely oblivious the entire time until I recounted the story with her once we were home. Well, this happened today 2 hours ago. I got a ride home from my university. I sat in the car, and the driver rested his elbow on the front passenger seat and kept moving it back. I felt extremely uneasy and felt the guy getting ready to touch me. After 10 seconds, we stopped at a traffic signal, and I told him I needed to get off. I'd forgotten something in uni. He was like, "No, ask someone else to get it for you." I told him no, I can't. I need to go get it myself for my professor. Then a beggar came, and he aggressively told her to leave. And then another came, and instead of asking me to shut the window, he aggressively started shutting it himself, touching my knee. I said to just drop me off there, I can walk back to uni. He said no, I'll take a U-turn ahead, and bring you back. Therefore, I spent the longest 3 minutes of my life in that car. His hand was in his lap during this time. The sad part is I called my mom and let her know I'll be late, and once I got home, she started blaming my clothes. I asked her how was my dress inappropriate, and she started to blame my long legs. My sister blamed the institute for being too liberal, and then such men roaming around to pick up liberal girls. This happened 4 or 5 years ago when I was like 17 years old and I had a girlfriend. I'm also a girl. I was at her house for the day. At this time, I didn't have a good relationship with my mom, so I would sleep for weeks at my best friend's house. So I realized it's about 1 a.m. and I decided to call an Uber as I live in a kind of small city, so buses stop passing by around 10 p.m. I call an Uber and ask it to wait at the end of the block so it wouldn't have to take any unnecessary turns. When it got there, my girlfriend went with me so she could say goodbye. We hugged and kissed, but that kind of kiss that only lasts 2 seconds. I waved to her as I turned to sit in the passenger seat and say hello to the driver. He replied to my greeting and started driving. He looked okay at first, but I was really wrong. He was in his 40s, his head was shaved, and he had a large tattoo on his arm. He asked me if I was a student, and I replied, yes. Then he asked me what I was studying at college, and I told him I was actually in my last year of high school. He said I looked a lot older, and I just laughed back awkwardly. This is when things started to go downhill. The conversation went something like this. Was that your girlfriend? The girl you kissed? Oh, yeah. How long have you been together? 1.5 years. Whoa, that's a really long time. Are you a lesbian? Why? Don't be ashamed. I'm not homophobic or anything. I actually like lesbians. Oh. So are you a lesbian? How do you have sex if none of you guys have a dick? I really don't want to talk about that. Sex is normal. I want to know how you two do it. Have you ever been with a man? Sorry, but I don't think this is appropriate to talk about. I've always wanted to experience a bit and have a threesome with 2 girls. Do you like men? Not really. It's okay. We don't have to have literal sex. I could just stand there and look as I touch myself. We're not interested in that kind of stuff. How do you know you don't like men if you've never been with one? Have you ever wondered what it's like? Friendly reminder, I was 17 at the time. My girlfriend was 16, and this creep was kind of 40. At this point, I'm freaking out. This guy was taking another route to take longer to arrive to my friend's house, and I remember thinking, well, this is the last moments of my life. This guy is taking me somewhere else. Maybe it sounds a bit extreme, but where I live, it's not that uncommon that this kind of stuff happens. I'm an atheist, but a fucking miracle happened, and my friend called me. I put him on speaker and he asked me how much longer I'm gonna take, because he was worried. So I replied that the Uber driver is taking me another route, but I'll be there soon, and asked him to wait for me at the front door. The creep panicked and took me to my friend's place. I opened the door and ran as fast as I could to hug my friend. At that moment, I walked into the house and I just fell onto the ground and cried my soul out. I genuinely thought I would die that day. I live in an apartment building that is safe, and I live on the 3rd floor. I was in bed napping around 3 p.m. when I heard a super loud bang on my door that wouldn't stop. I was sketched out, looking through the peephole. I cracked the door open with my gun behind my back. This 40 to 50-year-old male claimed that food had been delivered to his apartment by mistake and handed it to me, already opened. Okay, a little weird, but I've done it once myself by mistake, so I didn't think too much of it. But he also kept the wrapping of the package with my address and name on it. While I was closing the door, he tried to hook his head around to look inside. Already creeped out by the guy, I went to the Amazon app and saw a clear picture of my package at my door with my apartment number included. So my theory is he took the package from my door and used it as a way to see inside my apartment to case the place. Open to theories or explanations. But to be honest, I've had an attempted breaking and entering once when I lived in a rough area, so I'm concerned. But strange man taking my mail and claiming it was delivered to his place. Please, let's never meet again.